I will put you in the driver's seat at Le Mans. You just shut your mouth and let me do my thing. All right. Come here.
Morning, Shelby.
Morning, Molly.
Up yours.
I'll go to hell.
Why do men risk this? How can you get an audience who may never have gone around a racetrack to try to understand the thrill that these men get, the feeling of being alive in such a raw manner, that they do it in spite of the fact that they're very likely to die?
There were no roll bars. The shells were made of aluminum or fiberglass or some combination. I think it very often felt for them like you were riding at 200 miles an hour in a cardboard box. I wanted you to feel in the images and the sound and the way the light is playing in the cab of the car that you are flying in this kind of crazy, fragile cockpit.
They were both old. They were both in their 40s. Like, Miles was at the end of his run, really, and this was his last chance. And so the movie really follows that dynamic, that relationship, and all those dynamics within it, as these two guys who are very different but have a deep and abiding respect for each other attempt to do the impossible.
There is such a thing as reaching perfection. The road is finite. The car is finite. These aren't ephemeral things. So there must be then the perfect way to drive them. Meaning, if these things are real and hard and math and physics relate to them, then I'm the only fallible element. Ken was always after trying to almost take himself out, to be so perfect that he matched the perfection of the vehicle itself.
Look out there. Out there is the perfect lap. No mistakes. Every gear change, every corner. Perfect. You see it?
I think so.
Most people can't. Most people don't even know it's out there, but it is. It's there.
These are highly, highly ambitious human beings, and the way in which their relationships with their ambition are very, very different. And whether it's corporate, whether it's artistic, somehow, in not a smooth way at all, these unbelievably talented, ambitious people all collided with each other, aligned with each other, fought with each other, and the outcome was this ridiculously powerful, awesome automobile and this, this unbelievable feat of man and machine.
The story is so relatable just on, from a human standpoint, I think, about this friendship and about these guys who really cared about the same thing and as a result cared about each other, and despite being very, very different.
First and foremost, I think that everybody viewed him as a mechanic because he was wonderful. Shelby really saw his talents as a racer, and he was a real purist when it came to that. He didn't compromise in the slightest, and that was both his saving grace and his Achilles heel as well. Because, throughout his life, he'd shot himself in the foot many times because of his desire to never lose any battle. And for the first time with Shelby, he actually had somebody who thought strategically and who was supportive of him and behind him.
When you look at everything that's going on in the world, honoring what you really believe in your heart is right, and honoring the people that you've given your word to, versus just trying to do what's right for the people that you work for. And even if you know that serving your higher-ups is not necessarily doing what they say, but doing what you believe in your heart is right. And it puts people in these sort of crazy, stressful situations. I think ultimately, the power of friendship and the power of integrity is really what's celebrated in the film.
Carol Shelby,
Maybe?
Lee Iacocca, Ford Motor. Suppose Henry Ford II wanted to build the greatest race car the world's ever seen, to win the 24 hours of Le Mans. What's it take?
Well, it takes something money can't buy.
Money can buy speed.
What about speed?
My thing was like, let's get in the cars. I don't want to cover it like they do on TV. Meaning, I think the way it's going to feel like a movie is if the coverage of the race feels like nothing you ever saw, that you're much more with the driver, breathing with the driver, feeling the road, feeling every decision they're making with the gear shift, feeling the weather pressing against you and all the other oppositional forces against their vehicle and their success.
That's what Jim has done so beautifully. It does transcend being a racing movie. The races are phenomenal. They are so bloody exciting, but it is more than a racing movie. These are a bunch of characters who the odds are against them, that most people would laugh them out of the room in saying they do not belong, but they persist and they never give up.
In a straight drag race, the GT40 would have beat the Ferrari hands down any time, but their challenges were different. The Ferrari was a beautifully handling car, although it just didn't have the juice, it didn't have the power of the GT40. The GT40 was a kind of, in the American tradition, a kind of muscle car, but didn't have the finesse. And that was why it took them a few years.
They didn't know if they could stop at that time. You know, I mean, nowadays brakes are by far the most powerful, part of any car. But in those days, they were flying down that Mulsanne straight at 230 miles an hour. Now, I don't know what top speed you've ever gone at. I know on my motorcycle, when I looked, because I usually just would tape it over because I didn't want to know, but when I did look, it's like 153. And I felt like I was going to go to the moon. 230 miles an hour in the 60s, when they weren't really sure if they were going to be able to stop at the end of that. What type of man is willing to do that? That's a fascinating man, and that's worth making a film about.
You ready?
I was born ready, Mr. Shelby. Hit it.